Your goodness is ending you. It doesn't feel good to hear this, but the truth never feels good. The truth is just the truth. Cold, direct, heavy, like a stone placed on your chest that no one can lift except you. Think about it. How many times have you said yes when your entire being was screaming no? How many times have you hidden behind a smile, a pain that was hollowing you out from the inside? How many times have you kept murdering your silence for someone else's happiness and thought, this is goodness, this is love, this is humanity? No, that was not goodness. That was a trap, and you walked into that trap yourself, on your own feet, smiling. Until today, the world has taught you that goodness means sacrifice, that the more you bend, the greater you become, that the more you erase yourself, the brighter your existence will shine. A lie, a complete lie. And this lie is so old, repeated so many times, that it has started to feel like the truth. But today, we are going to tear the veil off this lie. Today, we will face that weakness which you have given the name of decency. And by the time this journey ends, a wall will have risen inside you, a mental shield that no one will be able to break. No manipulation, no emotional blackmail, no burden of favors, just you, whole, complete, free. Recall the faces in your life that have been exploiting your goodness. That friend who only remembers you in times of need. That relative who considers your help their right. That boss who sees your yes as your weakness and uses it repeatedly. Every time you thought, this is goodness, this is patience, this is tolerance. But deep down, somewhere you knew, something wasn't right. Something inside you was breaking, slowly, silently, like an old wall that looks fine from the outside, but is being eaten by termites from within. And the most painful thing is this: you can't even blame anyone else for your condition, because you chose this yourself. Every yes, every silence, every sacrifice, these were your own decisions. This realization, this responsibility, must be accepted first. Blaming someone else is easy. Recognizing yourself is the hardest task of all. But first, you must fall. Because until you reach the very bottom of your weakness, you can never break its foundation. Let's start with an old, forgotten story. In the Greek city of Corinth, where the sea breeze was always salty and heavy, a man sat on the ground one day, in the sun, next to a barrel that was his home. His name was Diogenes. People called him mad. Some considered him a saint. The truth was that he was free from both, because he had broken the one thing most people can never break, the need for the opinion of others. At that time, the most powerful man in the world, Alexander the Great, whom you know as Sikander Azam, came to Corinth. Every king, every philosopher, every merchant was bowing before him. People craved a single glance from him. They would sell their honor for one smile from him. Because Alexander had power, and bowing before power is written into human nature. Alexander heard that there was a philosopher in the city who didn't come to meet anyone, who never appeared in any court, who was not in need of anyone's praise. This touched his pride. He went to meet Diogenes himself, which in itself was a historic moment, because the most powerful man in the world came on his own to meet a beggar living in a barrel. Diogenes was sunbathing at that moment, lying on the ground, eyes closed. Alexander stood before him, his shadow falling across Diogenes' face. Alexander said, "I am Alexander. Ask whatever you want. I can give you what no one else can." The soldiers standing there, the courtiers, everyone waited to see what this beggar would ask for. Gold, land, honor, some title. Diogenes only said, "Just step aside a little. You're blocking my sunlight." An entire history is hidden in that sentence. A power is hidden in it that is sharper than any sword. Alexander, before whom the entire world bowed, felt small for the first time in front of someone, because the man standing before him was not in need of his approval. Diogenes didn't care about Alexander's happiness. He had no need for Alexander to think well of him. He had no fear of what would happen if he said no. Picture that moment in your mind. Alexander had his entire army with him, soldiers whose armor gleamed in the sun, horses pawing at the ground, courtiers accustomed to nodding at every word. And before him, near a barrel, lying in the dust, in torn clothes, was a man who had nothing, no house, no possessions, no title. Yet, when Alexander's shadow fell on him, Diogenes opened his eyes just enough to see who was standing there, and then turned his attention back to his sunlight, as if it were an ordinary matter. Whispers began among the soldiers. Some thought this beggar was mad. Some thought perhaps he couldn't hear out of fear. But Alexander understood. This was neither fear nor madness. This was a freedom he had never seen in anyone in his entire life. Every king he had met had bowed before him. Every philosopher he had met had praised him, sought his counsel, expressed gratitude for his favors. But this man wanted nothing from Alexander, and one who wants nothing can be given nothing, nor can anything be taken from him. It is said that as Alexander walked away, he said to his companions, "If I were not Alexander, I would wish to be Diogenes." Consider the depth of this. The most powerful man in the world, who had armies, treasure, kingdoms. He envied a man who had only a barrel. Why? Because Alexander had things, but he didn't have freedom. He was always dependent on someone or something. His army, his empire, his place in history. And Diogenes, he had nothing, but he was whole. This is the very difference we keep forgetting today. We think that the more people are happy with us, the freer we will be. But the truth is, the more you become a slave to the happiness of others, the more you imprison yourself. Diogenes said no for his sunlight, and even the most powerful man in the world had to step back. And you sacrifice your night's sleep, your peace, your time, your dignity, for people who don't even remember you. This story is so old, yet its lesson is as fresh as if it happened yesterday, because man hasn't changed since then. Only the barrels have changed, and Alexander now stands before you in the form of your boss, in the form of your relative, in the form of your friend, and you leave your sunlight to make space for them. The story of Diogenes is not just a fragment of the past imprisoned in books. It is a mirror, and if you look at yourself in this mirror, ask yourself one question. How many times have you abandoned your sunlight for some Alexander? How many times have you sacrificed your peace, your time, your existence, for someone who probably won't even remember you tomorrow? And the most important question, do you even know what your own sunlight is? Do you know what your own desires, your own dreams, your own needs are? Or have you, living in the dreams of others for so many years, forgotten your own dreams? This is the place where the real journey begins, because Diogenes didn't become Diogenes in one day. For years and years he asked himself these questions, reduced his needs, increased his freedom, and finally became the man whom no power in the world could shake. And you can do this too, but only when you face the 7 truths that are about to open before you. Now from here, a journey begins. 7 deep truths, 7 old walls standing between you and your freedom. We will tear down each wall, one by one, so that in the end, only you remain, without any burden, without any trap. The first truth is this: every yes you say against your heart is a small death. Pause for a moment. When someone asks you for something you don't want to give, and you still say yes, what happens in that moment? Something inside you dies. Your truth dies. Your voice dies. Your being takes one more step away from yourself. People think that saying no is harshness, rudeness, selfishness. But this is a misunderstanding taught to you since childhood. At home you were taught, don't say no to elders. At school you were taught, keep everyone happy. Otherwise people will call you bad. Society taught you sacrifice is honor. But Epictetus, who was himself a slave, whose leg was broken by his master because he said something against his master's will, taught that a person's true freedom lies not in his body, but in his choices. His body was in chains, but his mind was free, and he wrote, "Some things are within our control and some are not. The happiness of others, the opinions of others, the anger of others, these are not within your control. But your yes or no, this is only within your control." Imagine an ordinary morning at the office. The boss arrives, gives you a new task at the last moment, something after your shift, something completely against your plans. A voice inside you says, "I wanted to spend time with my children today," but your mouth says, "No problem, I'll do it." On the way home, driving the car, there's a strange burning in your chest. Not anger, not sadness, something else, something difficult to put into words. That burning is, in truth, your own self screaming, which you just suppressed for someone else's happiness. The modern trap is that people see no as the fear of breaking relationships. They think if I say no to the boss, I'll lose my job. If I say no to my friend, the friendship will end. If I say no to my parents, they will be upset. In this fear, people spend their entire lives saying yes, and one day they wake up, empty, exhausted, and realizing that their own life was never really theirs. Stoic wisdom is simple, but hard. If a relationship stands only on your yes, then that relationship was already dead. A true relationship is one that respects your no as well. And those who distance themselves from you because of your no, there was no point keeping them in your life anyway, because they didn't love you, they loved your service. The practical execution is this: tomorrow, when someone asks you for something that will swallow your time, your energy, your peace, pause for a moment. Just one moment. In that moment, ask yourself, am I doing this from the heart or from fear? If the answer is fear, understand that this is another small death you are giving yourself, and learn to say no without giving reasons, without apologizing. Just, no, I won't be able to do this. That's enough. You don't need to give anyone an explanation. Recall an incident from your own life, some moment when you said yes and couldn't sleep that night. There was a strange heaviness in your heart, as if someone had placed a stone on your chest. What was this heaviness? It wasn't guilt that you had done something bad. This heaviness was because you buried your truth, suppressed the voice of your being, and the body, no matter how much it stays silent, eventually rebels, in the form of sleep, in the form of restlessness, or in the form of that silent sadness that feels without reason, but whose reason you yourself know. Epictetus taught his students that the first task is to recognize one's prohairesis, the power of one's will. This is the part no one can steal. Someone can imprison your body, as happened to his own. Someone can snatch your possessions, but no one can steal your choices until you hand them over yourself. And every time you say yes out of fear, you are placing your prohairesis in someone else's hands. You are selling your most precious thing, your most free thing, in exchange for someone else's happiness. And this chain never ends unless you stop it yourself. Because the more you bend, the more people expect you will bend again. It becomes a pattern. First small yeses, then bigger yeses, then yeses that change the course of your entire life. A job you don't like, a marriage you entered only because you didn't have the courage to say no, a friendship that has been hollowing you out for years but you can't leave because of what will people say. Consider a young man whose family showed him a marriage proposal. 1,000 questions were in his heart, 1,000 doubts. But when the eyes of the entire room were fixed on him, when his mother's hopeful eyes were upon him, he nodded his head. Yes, just one word, but that word decided his entire future life. Years later, sitting alone at night, he asks himself, why did I say yes? And the answer is always the same. Because at that moment, saying no felt like breaking the hopes of the entire room, and that strength, that courage, he didn't have at that time. This isn't just about marriage. This is about every decision we make, only because the expectations of others force us. Career choices, the atmosphere at home, the circle of friendship, everything is built from small chains of yeses. And one day, we become strangers in our own lives, because this life wasn't chosen by us. It was chosen for the happiness of others. But the question is, if you take back all your yeses, what will remain? Will you be left alone? Will people leave you? The answer is hidden in the next truth. The second truth is this: you are not the contractor for the happiness of others, but you have placed this responsibility on your own shoulders. This is a silent disease. It is everywhere. A mother sacrifices her life for her daughter's happiness. A friend stays awake all night in their friend's grief, until they themselves are destroyed. An employee sells their conscience to manage their boss's mood. And all these people think this is love. But the Stoics understood this difference long ago. There is a difference between love and responsibility. Marcus Aurelius, who was the most powerful man in the Roman Empire, who ruled over the entire world, wrote in his diary, which later became famous as Meditations, that every morning he reminded himself, "Today I will meet ungrateful, arrogant, deceitful people." Why? Because he had understood the behavior of others is not in his hands. Only his own response is in his hands. The modern trap is that people take the emotional state of others as their own responsibility. If my mother is sad, I cannot be happy. If my friend is troubled, I must carry their burden on my shoulders. If my partner is angry, I must fix everything, whether it's my fault or not. This is a chain that never lets you be free, because there will always be someone sad in the world. And if you become responsible for everyone's happiness, you will never be happy yourself. Stoic wisdom says, you are responsible only for your own character, your own decisions, your own attitude. The emotions of others are their own responsibility. This is not shamelessness. This is the truth. When you lift the burden of someone else's happiness off your shoulders, only then can you truly help them, without erasing yourself. Practical execution. The next time someone around you is sad, grieving, angry, look inside. Is this my fault? Or is this their own journey where my role is only to support them, not to be erased? Supporting and being sacrificed. These are two different things. One is love, the other is self-deception. Look at a mother who considers every sorrow of her young child her own sorrow. If the son doesn't succeed in his job, the mother stays awake at night. If the daughter's engagement breaks, the mother herself goes on medication. This is love, no doubt. But this love, when it crosses its limit, becomes a disease itself. Because when a mother revolves her entire life around the emotions of her child, not only does she destroy herself, but she also teaches her child that their emotions are someone else's responsibility, not their own. This pattern repeats in every relationship. A friend carries their friend's burden until they themselves start to fall. An employee absorbs their boss's anger inside until they themselves become filled with poison. And most painful, people make their partner's happiness the purpose of their life. And when that happiness is not achieved, they blame themselves. When the truth is that every person seeks their own happiness, no one else can fulfill it. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that the behavior of others, their anger, their displeasure, their sorrow, all this is the product of their own mind, which is not within his control. His task was only to remain truthful himself, to remain just himself, and leave the rest to nature. This is not numbness. This is a deep understanding that you can only play your part. You cannot write the entire story. Seneca's life is the sharpest example of this lesson. He was the teacher of the Roman Emperor Nero. For years he trained him, devoted his life to Nero's happiness, his approval. He thought if he kept Nero happy, if he always followed his will, perhaps he could change Nero into a good ruler. But Nero's nature was not something to be changed by someone else's happiness. In the end, Nero ordered his own teacher to take his own life, merely on suspicion. Seneca, upon hearing that order, calmly, in front of his friends, accepted his death, without any complaint. The lesson of this story is not that Seneca was wrong to become a teacher. The lesson is that he spent too long thinking Nero's nature could be changed by his influence. Sometimes, no matter how much love there is, no matter how much effort, another person remains who they are, and your task is not to change them, but to keep yourself truthful. But understanding this is not enough, because until the question arises inside you, why do I need people to be happy with me? You will fall back into the same trap, and that is the next secret. The third truth is this: those who are hungry for your approval are actually begging for their own self-respect. This is hard to hear, but necessary. When you bend excessively before someone, waste your time for someone's praise, hide your truth to hear someone say, "Well said," then you are doing only one thing: placing your own worth in the hands of others. Seneca wrote in his letters that a person is most a slave to their own opinion, not of others, but of that opinion of their own, which they think others hold about them. This is an imaginary prison. You cannot sit inside someone's mind. You will never truly know what they think of you, but you still spend your entire life trying to please this imaginary opinion. The modern trap, social media, has worsened this disease. Now people become sad if a post doesn't get likes. They consider themselves inferior if they don't get an invite to a group. They reduce the value of their own work if they don't receive someone's praise. All of this is, in truth, an attempt to fill that empty space that belongs to self-respect, but which you are trying to fill from outside. Think of a young woman who checks her post again and again, sees how many likes came, which names are on the list, which name is missing. Every time a familiar name is not on this list, a small sting rises in her heart. Did I upset them? Do they not like me? This sting seems so small that she ignores it, but this sting happens 100 times a day, and 1,000 times a month, and by the end of the year, her entire mind has become addicted to this begging that is never fulfilled, because there is no limit to approval, no final destination where one can say, "Now it's enough." Stoic wisdom is direct. Self-respect does not come from someone else's validation. It comes from your own character, from your own principles. When you make your own decisions, walk on your own principles, whether anyone sees or not, whether anyone praises or not. Only then is that peace born inside you, which no one can snatch. Practical execution. From today, do one small thing, only for yourself, that no one will see, that no one will praise. Read a book no one will know about. Speak a truth that no one will like. Every day, ask yourself only one question. If no one in the world was watching me, Would I still make this same decision? If the answer is yes, you are on the right path. If the answer is no, understand that you are a slave to approval. Think of those people who became immortal in history, not because everyone liked them, but because they walked their own path, carefree, did their work. Socrates was poisoned because he didn't care about the approval of the people of Athens. He only cared about the truth. He had the opportunity to apologize, to stay silent, to save his life. He refused, because for him, his truth was more valuable than his life. This is an extreme example, but its lesson is just as true in everyday life. Every time you hide something just because of what people will think, you cut off a piece of your own self-respect and place it before others. And these pieces, accumulating, one day make you unable to recognize yourself. You look in the mirror and ask, "Who is this?" Remember, those who demand your approval and don't receive it forget you within a week. But the time you lost by not giving approval to yourself never returns. But now, an even more dangerous truth emerges. Those who recognize your weakness do not call it love. They call it opportunity. If you have stayed with me so far, you may have begun to feel something inside, a slight restlessness, a recognition, as if some old, forgotten pain is reawakening. This is good. This is necessary. Because until pain awakens, healing doesn't begin. But what you have heard so far was only the tearing down of the first 3 walls. 4 more walls remain, and the next one will perhaps be the most painful. Because this is the truth that will tell you about those people you consider your closest. The 4th truth is this. Among those who recognize your goodness, some consider it love, and some consider it opportunity. And those who consider it opportunity always keep you hungry. They give you a little love, so that you keep giving everything. This is the oldest game in history. In every era, there have been people who use goodness as weakness. And this is the most painful truth. Because when a stranger exploits you, it hurts. But when someone close, someone dear, exploits your goodness, that pain descends into the soul. Marcus Aurelius went through betrayal from his family, his courtiers, his friends. His closest friend and general, Avidius Cassius, rebelled against him when a rumor spread that Marcus had died. Upon hearing this news, Marcus did not destroy himself, nor did he burn in the fire of revenge. He wrote, "The best revenge is to not be like the one who wronged you." This lesson is profound. When someone exploits your goodness, your first reaction is, either you show even more goodness so they melt, or you become completely broken and bitter. Both are wrong paths. The Stoic path is a third one. Make your goodness selective. Not everyone deserves your full goodness. The modern trap. People think goodness should be a universal thing, equal for everyone. But this is wrong. Even water is not poured everywhere, only where there is a seed, where the soil is fertile. Where there is stone, water is wasted. In the same way, your goodness, your love, your time, give it only to those who can handle it, who can return it, who can respect it. Practical execution. From today, make a list. In your mind, it doesn't have to be on paper, of those people who exploit your goodness, who take your help but never give back, who treat you badly, and then wait for your goodness to forgive them without any change on their part. Withdraw your goodness from those people. This is not cruelty. This is justice. This game is very cunning. Those who exploit your goodness never ask directly. First they ask for a small help, a little time, a little money, a little emotional support. You give it, because it's a small thing. Then they ask for a little more, and you give again, because now saying no feels strange. You had given before, after all. And this chain grows. until one day you realize you are in a relationship where only you are giving, and the other person is only taking. And if one day you say no, they become upset, as if you have snatched away their right. Consider a family. One brother always helps his other brother, gives money, covers his mistakes, apologizes to the world on his behalf. The other brother never says thank you, because in his mind, the belief has settled that it's the older brother's duty to help. And the day the first brother, exhausted, says, "I can't do this anymore," the whole family blames the first brother. How selfish he has become. He used to be so good before. No one asks what that first brother endured for years. The world only sees the last moment, not the entire story. This sense of entitlement is the most dangerous thing of all, because when someone starts considering your goodness as their right, then that goodness is no longer goodness. It has become a responsibility you never agreed to, and a responsibility, when imposed without consent, becomes a prison. Marcus Aurelius faced many betrayals in his life, but he never turned his heart to stone. He only changed his understanding. He knew which people treat him with dignity, and which only want to exploit his position. And he kept his love, his time, his trust, only for the first kind of people. This is Stoic wisdom, not to close the heart, but to make the heart wise. But if you withdraw your goodness, a voice will rise from inside. Am I becoming selfish? This question is so deep that its answer is revealed by the next truth. The fifth truth is this: sacrificing your emotions is not love, it is self-deception. This word self-deception is very heavy. It means deceiving yourself. And those who sacrifice their emotions, their desires, their needs for others, think they are doing something very great. But in truth, they are lying to themselves. Think about it. When you ignore your exhaustion to do someone else's work, when you suppress your hunger to feed someone else, when you hide your pain to listen to someone else's pain, is this sacrifice, or is it a way of running away from your own self? The Stoics teach that taking care of one's own self is part of human nature, a fundamental Stoic principle called oikeiosis. It means love for one's own self, protection of one's own being. And this is not selfishness. This is responsibility. Just as a tree first waters its own roots, only then can it give shade to others. If the roots dry up, the tree itself will fall, and then no one will get any shade. Think of a nurse who spends her entire career saving others' lives, stays awake at night, sacrifices her holidays, ignores her own health, in the name of other people's lives are more important. Years later, when her own body breaks down from exhaustion, she realizes she has emptied herself so much that now she has nothing left to give, even to others. This sacrifice, starting with pure intentions, if the self is completely forgotten, this sacrifice adopts the slow form of suicide. The modern trap. People think taking care of yourself is selfishness, that if I took time for myself, I am selfish, that if I put my need first, I am a bad person. This thinking is so deeply ingrained that people sacrifice their health, their sleep, their peace, and in the end, when they themselves start breaking, they have nothing left for anyone, not for themselves, not for others. Stoic wisdom is simple. Taking care of yourself is the first condition of serving others. A fire that is already extinguished cannot give light to anyone. Practical execution. Tonight, make a promise to yourself. You will fulfill one of your needs tomorrow, no matter how small, without any guilt. Whether it's completing your sleep, whether it's sitting alone and having tea, whether it's saying no to something that drains your energy. This small beginning is the first step towards a greater freedom. Think of those people who spent their entire lives in the service of others. They didn't dream for themselves, didn't fulfill their desires, because someone else was always first. And when finally, in old age, they got the time that was their own, their body and mind were so exhausted that they couldn't even enjoy that time. This is the most painful history ever written, not of war, not of destruction, but of lives that were never really lived, only spent for others. This sacrifice, when it exceeds its limit, becomes harmful even to others, because when you completely ignore your own self, you start keeping a hidden account. I did so much, what did they do? And this account, whenever it comes to the tongue, destroys relationships. It is better that you respect your needs from the beginning, so that your love flows from joy, not from accounting. Remember, you can be responsible for someone, but you cannot erase yourself for someone. The difference is subtle, but as deep as life and death. But while doing all this, a new fear will arise. If I start taking care of myself, people will think I'm selfish. This fear is the sixth truth. The sixth truth is this: the silence you adopt for the happiness of others, over time, becomes a poison that eats you from the inside. Every time you hide your pain, every time you swallow your anger, every time you suppress your desire so that no one else gets upset, you pour a drop of poison inside yourself. And the nature of poison is this: it keeps accumulating, silently, until one day it erupts, either becoming a disease of the body, or a pain of the heart, or suddenly in the form of an outburst of anger that even surprises you. Listen to this story. Seneca wrote to his student Lucilius that anger is suppressed pain, that finding no outlet burns itself. He said that a person should not suppress their emotions, but should understand them and express them in the right way. Stoicism does not mean having no emotions. Stoicism means ruling over emotions, not suppressing them. The modern trap: people misunderstand Stoicism. They think being stoic means having a heart of stone, feeling nothing, always remaining silent. But this is wrong. Silence that comes from suppression is not Stoicism, it is self-destruction. The real Stoic is one who speaks calmly, with dignity, but truthfully, whether the other person gets upset or happy. Practical execution. The next time something hurts you, don't suppress it immediately, and don't explode in anger either. Choose the middle path. Calmly, in direct words, speak your mind. When you said that, it hurt me. Saying this much is enough. This does not make you weak. It makes you strong. Because only strong people can express their pain directly, without fighting, without hiding. This silence comes in many forms. Sometimes it hides behind a smile when the heart is breaking inside. Sometimes it hides in the words, "It's nothing," when actually, it is everything. Sometimes it lasts for years. A person doesn't say something essential to their mother, their father, their partner, because the relationship will be ruined. And then one day, that relationship ends on its own, because what was never said could never be fixed. Consider a marriage where both people love each other, but both keep suppressing their complaints to avoid a fight. Years pass. A settlement of silence takes over the house. No fight, no conversation, only a cold, dead silence. People consider this a good marriage because they never even fight. But in truth, these are two people who have hidden so many things from each other that they no longer recognize each other. There is only one thing worse than a fight: that silence which takes the place of the fight. The most dangerous aspect of poison is that it acts slowly. One day's suppressed words do nothing, but years of suppressed words, accumulated, take the form of disease in a person's body, take the form of sadness in their mind, and build a wall of silence in their relationships that can never be broken. Stoicism does not teach you to become stone-hearted. It teaches you to recognize your emotions, understand them, and then express them in the right way, with dignity. Neither suppress them until they explode, nor let them become uncontrolled until they burn everything. Now we have reached the place where the final, most powerful truth awaits you. 6 walls have fallen. You have seen the death of your yes, lifted the burden of others' happiness, recognized the begging for approval, named the opportunists, stopped the sacrifice of your emotions, and understood the poison of your silence. Now only one final wall remains, the deepest, the most fundamental, the one that is the root of all the other walls. The 7th truth is this: real power is not showing goodness all the time. Real power is making goodness a thoughtful, dignified, selective thing. As long as you keep believing that being a good person means saying yes all the time, to everyone, you will never be free. But the day you understand that goodness is a sword, and a sword is not drawn for everyone, only when needed, only at the right place, only for those who appreciate its worth, that day your being will change. The Stoics never said to abandon goodness. They said to connect goodness with understanding. Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of the entire Roman Empire, treated even his enemies with mercy. But he was not weak. His goodness came from his strength, not from his compulsion. This is the very difference you must learn. The modern trap. People think goodness and compulsion are the same thing. But no, compulsion is the goodness that comes from fear. If I don't do it, what will people say? Strength-based goodness is the one that comes from choice. I am doing this because I want to, not because of any fear. Practical execution. From tomorrow, before every act of goodness, ask yourself this question: am I doing this of my own will, or from fear? If the answer is will, do it, with all your heart, without keeping accounts. If the answer is fear, stop, and free yourself. Remember another Roman figure, Cato the Younger. His enmity was with Julius Caesar, and the entire politics of Rome revolved around him. People advised him to bend a little, to compromise a little, to show a little flexibility. This is how relationships are built. This is how power is gained. But Cato never compromised on his principles, even if he had to pay with his life. People called him stubborn, but history remembers him as the man who could not be priced, because one who does not sell themselves cannot be priced. Distinguish between Cato and that ordinary person who walks around saying yes everywhere, so no one gets upset. Cato had goodness too. He had loyalty to his friends, to his country, but that goodness was a choice, not a result of fear. And this is the very difference you must cultivate in yourself. Goodness that comes from your conscience, not from your fear. Now, if you have walked with me this far, you have seen the 7 walls that stood in the way of your freedom. Every yes, born of fear. Every responsibility that wasn't yours. Every approval you begged for like alms. Every relationship that stood on your weakness. Every emotion you stole from yourself and gave to others. Every silence that became poison. And every goodness that became compulsion. All of this now stands before you completely clear. Now it is time to change. This change begins when you stop considering yourself a victim. As long as you keep thinking, people use me, the world is very cruel, I am being forced, you are placing your power in the hands of others yourself. But the day you say, I used my goodness in the wrong places, now I am learning, that day you will transform from victim to sovereign, from slave to master. This is not an easy journey. People will be upset when you learn to say no. People will call you selfish when you take care of yourself. Some relationships will break when you make your goodness selective. But all this is the price of that freedom you never knew before. It is important to understand. Those who will be most upset at your change will often be the very people who benefited the most from your old, weak form. This is a natural thing. When water changes its path, the land that used to be irrigated begins to dry up, and that land complains. But the water's task is not to keep the land happy. It is to choose its own correct path. A time will come when you look back, and all those people who became upset at your no will either have left, or they themselves will have changed, adjusting their expectations. And those who remain will be the very people who truly love your new, strong form, not your sacrifice. This change does not remain limited to your relationships. When you reclaim your freedom, your work, your health, your mind, everything begins to change. Because the energy that was previously wasted seeking the approval of others now gets invested in your own dreams. The time that was previously spent fulfilling the needs of others is now spent in your own formation. This transformation does not happen overnight. The first day you will say no, and your heart will pound as if you have committed some great sin. The second day, the fear will be a little less. The 10th day, you yourself will be surprised why it felt so difficult before. And after a month, you will not be the same person who is beginning this journey today. You will have begun to become a new being, a being who recognizes their places, their principles, their freedom. This change is not just external, it begins from within. The way you walk changes, previously stooped, now straight. Your voice changes, previously suppressed, now clear. That thing comes into your eyes that was in Diogenes' eyes when he looked at Alexander. Not arrogance, not hatred, just a deep, carefree peace that says, I don't need you, but if you wish, we can talk as equals. And the most beautiful thing is that when you free yourself, you also show a path to others. Your mother who sees that you set your boundary and the world didn't end, perhaps she too will learn to set her boundary. Your friend who sees that you said no and still remained happy, perhaps they too will find the courage to say their no. Freedom is like a lamp. When one lights up, others too can see the path. This is the deepest secret of Stoicism, that protecting your own self is not a selfish act, but a kind of service. Because a person who has destroyed themselves can give nothing to anyone. But the person who is whole, complete, connected to their roots, their goodness alone carries impact. Their love alone carries meaning. Their company alone is true company. And the most important thing in this journey is to understand that you don't need to prove to anyone that you have changed. You don't need to announce your freedom to anyone. You just need to stand silently, in small daily decisions, with your truth. Sometimes by saying no to someone, sometimes by stating your opinion directly, sometimes by saving your time for yourself. These small steps, accumulating, will one day take you where Diogenes stood, in his sunlight, of his own will, setting his own terms. Remember Diogenes. That day, in front of Alexander the Great, a beggar simply said, "Don't block my sunlight," and history remembered that sentence for thousands of years, because in that sentence was power, was freedom, was the complete conviction of being. From today, you too have your own sunlight, your own time, your own peace, your own dignity, and no one, no matter how powerful, no matter how close, no matter how needy, has the right to block your sunlight. Goodness is not a bad thing. Goodness is the most beautiful power in the world, when it comes from understanding, from will, from dignity. But the day goodness starts coming from fear, the day it becomes compulsion, the day it demands the sacrifice of the self, that day it no longer remains goodness. It becomes a chain. A golden chain, but still a chain. Think of those thousands of people who right now, in this moment, somewhere, are giving away their sunlight to someone else. Someone sitting in their home, hiding their desire out of fear of their partner's displeasure. Someone in their office, sacrificing their night's sleep for their boss's happiness. Someone making their friend's sorrow their own sorrow, destroying themselves. All these people, not one of them is a bad person. These are all the very same people who want to love, who want to serve, who want to be good people. But no one ever told them that goodness also has a limit, and beyond that limit, goodness becomes a slow, silent form of suicide. Today, from this moment, you have a chance, like Diogenes, to recognize your sunlight, like Marcus Aurelius, to free your mind from the behavior of others, like Epictetus, to reclaim the power of your will. This is not a task of one night. This is a journey of a lifetime. But the first step of every journey begins today, from this very moment. So now the decision is yours. Will you choose that same old path? Every yes, every silence, every sacrifice, every begging for approval? Or will you choose that new path, where your goodness is a choice, a power, a sword that you yourself wield? Think about it. When you depart from this world and look back at your life, will you be happy remembering that you kept everyone happy by losing your own self? Or will you be happy remembering that you gave respect to yourself first, and then whatever remained, you gave to the world? Because in the end, no one will write on your grave that this person kept everyone happy. People will remember who you were, in your truth, in your freedom, in your being. And those memories, that impact, are only born when you live your own life, not by becoming someone else's shadow. Every person has their own sunlight, that moment, that place, that peace which is only theirs. Some people never find this sunlight because they are always standing in someone else's shadow. And some people, like Diogenes, recognize their sunlight with such intensity that even the most powerful man in the world has to step back before them. Think one last time of that barrel, of that dusty ground, of that salty breeze of Corinth. Alexander walked away from there with his army, drunk on power, but with an emptiness inside, because he had seen that despite conquering the world, he had still not conquered his own freedom. And Diogenes remained seated in his place, in his sunlight, without any crown, without any army, but whole, complete, and free, in a way no king could ever be. This difference is the real wealth. This difference is the real power. The world will teach you that power means keeping people under your control, imposing your will on others, expanding your circle. But real power is the exact opposite. Real power is recognizing your own sunlight and not letting anyone, no matter how big, no matter how powerful, block it. And when you learn this, your goodness too will change. That goodness which previously came from fear will now come from strength. That goodness, which was previously distributed like alms, will now become a gift, only for those who appreciate its worth. And people will feel this difference, even if they cannot express it in words. They will feel that now your smile comes from will, not compulsion. They will feel that now your yes is a gift, not a habit. This is the very moment when people begin to understand your true value. Because a thing that is easily available is not valued. Goodness that is always present without asking, without effort, eventually starts to seem ordinary. But goodness that is thoughtful, chosen, given with dignity, that always remains precious. Because everyone knows this goodness is a decision, not a compulsion. Tonight, as you lie on your bed, looking at your ceiling, let the moments of today pass through your mind. Every moment when you said yes from fear, and every moment when you hid your truth. Remember them one by one, without punishing yourself, just to see, just to understand. And then make a promise to yourself. From tomorrow, one small step towards your sunlight. This question is for you. Only for you. No one else can answer it. The sunlight is yours. No one can snatch it from you, as long as you yourself do not wish it. Now tell me, which side do you stand on?